Okay, well, we begin today with lots of headlines. As I come to you right now, again, I've been working the phones and been doing a lot of reporting and just sort of behind the scenes color on what's going on with my good friend Dan Bongino. You know, he is the salt of the earth. I can count on one hand the sort of decent, this is a terrible thing to say, right? But decent people on air in this business. And he is for sure top of the list, really. Just a great, great guy. Anyway, he is in a situation there with Pam Bondi where I think it's going to come down to Dan versus Pam, according to sources familiar with the story. And I want to get into that a little bit because I think we're all kind of frustrated with Pam right now. Maybe Pam is not the right person for that job. It would be terrible if they lose Dan, but it may come down to that. Anyway, layoffs hitting the State Department. We got to get into that one. We've got John Brennan panicking all over live TV. MSNBC. Oh, my goodness. MSNBC is discovering that, or he's going on MSNBC. Maybe they're discovering that he's not quite keeping it together the way he should. You've got Pam Bondi and that situation developing, Trump threatening arrests of local politicians who were caught defying the feds. You've got Michelle Obama making wild comments about women as divorce rumors heat up. We didn't get a chance to cover that yesterday, so I wanted to get into that today. And you get the New York Times columnist Paul Krugman making some really stupid, idiotic comments. I mean, beyond stupid, idiotic comments. And they're coming back to haunt him. We always knew he was a hack, right? But now you really know he's a stupid hack. That's the truth of it. Welcome to the program, everyone. We got a big purge going on right now at the State Department. 1,800 people losing their jobs.
And breaking tonight, a letter obtained by Fox News shows plans to overhaul the State Department and reduce staff by laying off employees. That whole plan is moving forward now. We anticipate that about 1,800 employees will be let go under the order. The memo says once notifications have taken place, the department will enter the final stage of its reorganization and focus its attention on delivering results-driven diplomacy.
Results-driven diplomacy. So that's going to be like a whole different thing, right? A whole different thing because they actually are bringing some accountability. Imagine accountability into the State Department, into the government of the United States. You know, they've never really had accountability because it's the government. It's big and bloated and they don't have to operate like a company would, right? Not like shareholders are keeping them accountable. We have voters that are supposed to keep them accountable, but for whatever reason, you've had a State Department that has just ballooned insanely out of size over the last however many years. And so now you've got lots of changes coming. This is a restructuring that they have been putting in place, they have been working on. And of course, everybody was worked up about it. You had lawsuit after lawsuit. I think Letitia had a lawsuit in there. And yet, ultimately, what was decided was that the Supreme Court would honor this, that in other words, the federal government, the President of the United States, if he wanted to cut his staff, had the right to do this. This came out just earlier in the week. I believe this was on Tuesday. And in the meantime, today, it's Friday. We're looking at video of people leaving the State Department, boxes in hand. So clearly this administration is not wasting any time. They said they wanted to restructure government in a way that would be more streamlined. You don't need the kind of duplication that you have in, say, 700 domestic offices. Interestingly, they're not getting rid of anyone overseas. It's the domestic people at the State Department. You're going to say, like, what are you doing with 700 offices here domestically? I mean, you're supposed to be representing us all over the world, right? So why would you have 700 offices and that many people here at home? So all of these people are going to be, looking for new gigs, of course. As you saw, there's some video of them coming out of the State Department itself. Meanwhile, they have the authority, or the administration has the authority to do this because of the Supreme Court in the United States making this decision. I mean, it was nearly unanimous. I mean, you do have Ketanji Brown Jackson, who was the lone dissenter in all of it. But remember this happening on Tuesday?
Breaking moments ago, the Supreme Court with a decision that will allow the Trump administration to move ahead with their plans to cut the federal workforce, at least for now. Justice correspondent David Spott, give us the backstory here, reporting live from Washington. Hi, David.
Hi, Martha. A nice Tuesday afternoon win for the Trump administration. And it's funny because the justices normally are on their summer recess right now. Doesn't mean they don't work behind the scenes, but these justices have been busy because of these executive orders and the way they've made their way through the legal process. But this right now is a order from the Supreme Court essentially saying that a San Francisco judge who put a stop to the Trump administration from cutting several federal agencies, they're saying that the Trump administration, in fact, right now can continue forward as the case plays out on its merits. So essentially back in May, several different agencies sued. They said that the Trump administration wanted to make cuts at the Departments of Agriculture, Commerce, Defense, Energy, Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, HUD, Justice, Labor, State Treasury, and Transportation, pretty much all of them. Now the Supreme Court is giving the Trump administration victory some almost 6 months into the president's second term here, saying that they can go forward with these reductions in forces. You may remember that this was part of the Doge effort when Elon Musk was still hanging out around the White House. But President Trump today, Martha, during the cabinet meeting said that some of those Doge moves made sense, were important. And this was a campaign promise and a promise really of this presidency to cut some of these federal agencies. And now this administration can feel vindicated from the Supreme Court as they move forward and make some of these cuts, Martha.
Yeah.
You know, that's just amazing that they wanted to fight this so hard. Let's be very clear. Barack Obama did plenty of cutting himself, but somehow when Donald Trump wants to do it, it's not allowed, right? Not okay. You're going to fight that one. Well, the Supreme Court making the decision, yeah, he had the authority to do it, and now they're following through. So you heard the reporter they're mentioning from Fox that you're going to see things at Health and Human Services, you're going to see the Agriculture Department, you're going to see the Treasury Department all experience these cuts. Marco Rubio, they're ahead of the curve, taking this opportunity to really start to make some reductions, massive reductions there at the State Department. 1,800 people, it's a lot. It's about 15% of their workforce. Again, those are happening domestically. There's also an idea, let me just float this out there, going sort of around, that they want to kind of remake it in terms of not just making it more efficient from a structural perspective, but also less woke. So in other words, if you were kind of part of the woke police at the State Department, I have a feeling, and there was a lot of woke police at the State Department. I remember they did something funny where they were like insisting everybody put their pronouns at the bottom of an email. So they're getting rid of the people that were part of the woke police. I have a feeling that's going to be a big one. Anyway, again, I wanted to bring you some reporting on this Bongino situation. It really appears at this moment in time that Dan Bongino, very popular podcaster, someone I used to work with at Fox, and that I do respect very much. And I know that this has been a sort of challenging time, I think, of the MAGA movement, because you've got this division where people are like, wait a second, what's going on with Epstein? And why is this getting buried under the rug? And why is it that people that we trust, like a Dan Bongino or a Kash Patel, are saying one thing and then it turns out something else is going down? I mean, I do think that Dan Bongino had been pretty insistent throughout the years about the need for some kind of justice when it came to the Epstein situation, and something that Kash Patel had advanced as well. And so you can imagine everyone's surprise recently when they said this is case closed. And now I'm kind of wondering if maybe it's not entirely case closed. Don't forget what Pam Bondi had promised. Remember this? A list?
DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed, because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
But you know what's important? She did say that she had a list, right? There was some kind of Epstein list. So either she was really speaking out of school and didn't have anything and really hadn't looked at anything, or there's a list and now suddenly there's not. I mean, this is what people are getting kind of upset about. And you couple that together with the fact that there was a missing minute, remember, in that Epstein tape? I think I have this for you. I want to show you. So there's this missing minute, and it's kind of concerning because they're like, oh no, he definitely, nobody came in there. You don't have anything to worry about because we know this for sure because we have this tape. And yet it turns out the tape is missing a minute. Okay, let me move this up so you can see. You see the date there down on the bottom, and all of a sudden it's going from 11 to past 12. So there's this final missing minute. And this was released, and they were kind of saying, hey, look, we got the tape, we got the tape, we got the tape. And then everybody's looking and going, well, wait a second, where's the minute? And so we here at the show went on to the website and played it ourselves, and we're like, wait a second, there is in fact a missing minute. This is sort of bizarre. How did that happen? Well, there's now a blame game going on. And this is, to a certain extent, why I think that Dan Bongino's kind of had it. He's just sort of kind of had it because according to Axios, he took the day off from work. He just didn't come in today. And it's because of some kind of altercation he's having with Pam Bondi and these Epstein files and that particular minute of tape. Because, if you're Dan, you don't really appreciate maybe whatever's going on. And we don't really know what's going on. I mean, I have my suspicions and theories about what's going on, and I have only to look back to what happened in Florida. Remember in Florida when Alex Acosta, who was the AG and prosecuted Epstein back then and somehow gave him a sweetheart deal, he totally got off easy. Now, why did he get off so easy? The rumor at the time, and Daily Beast, I hate to ever quote the Daily Beast, but so be it, we're going to quote him. The Daily Beast had reported at the time that there was speculation Alex Acosta had talked to somebody at the CIA who basically, I wonder if that would have been Brennan, who basically said, go easy on the guy, he's one of ours. And so that has never fully been reported out. This is a Daily Beast thing, but it certainly explains why they gave him such an easy sentence. I mean, if what he did is true, you would think the guy would deserve a whole lot more, right? So now, fast forward to today, and Pam was like, I got the files, I got the list, I got this, I got that. And then it turns out she's got nothing. There's no list. This is over. People are getting kind of mad. And Dan Bongino is one of them. So according to Axios, Dan Bongino is clashing with Pam Bondi over these files. You basically see here in the story that he didn't come to work today, as we reported, and sources have said he's not coming back. Now, I can confirm, I've spoken to people who know Dan well and are familiar with this whole situation, and that's true. He's not interested. And why would he be? Think about it. He's got a good thing going. He's got a very popular podcast. Everybody loves him. And now he's on the inside and he's having to deal with bureaucrats. And he's got Pam Bondi, who, you know what? I don't know her that well. We've been on television together at times, various times over the years. I don't know her that well. But I got to say, I'm not impressed with the lack of speed. Granted, it's a hard job. It's a thankless job. And she's out there firing this, that, and the other. But I would say this, you know what? It's a hard job, but you need somebody who's a killer attorney, okay? Awesome attorney, but who's not only just such a fantastic attorney with a firm grasp of constitutional law, et cetera. You need somebody who's also a great manager, because I think you need somebody at the top who's got a bunch of Stephen Millers. He has a law degree, I think, from Duke. A bunch of Stephen Millers out there who are motivated and smart and good, and you unleash them to go do their jobs, and you manage it, right, from on high, but you're smart and you're good and you're inspiring and they get the job done and things happen. But that's not the way it's going down. Nothing's happening. Remember, they brought in all the influencers for that influencer gate to the White House, and Kash and Pam were there, and they're like, oh, we got this great binder, and we're getting all the information. Turns out there's no information in it. And then she's like, oops, I couldn't get the information because the FBI in New York wouldn't actually release it. And then they fired the FBI guy, or, let him go with pay and retirement. But still, we got nothing. I mean, here we are, and now there's this fallout over this missing minute. So again, you saw the tape. A minute of it is missing. So you can't really look at that tape and say, ha, everything's okay. Pam apparently was blaming Dan, according to this Axios story. And she took it up at a meeting with Susie Wiles and the president and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, and she started attacking him and went after him all about this, and then went after him because there was some story that was reported in News Nation that she's accusing him of leaking. A source, here's the story there. A source close to the White House told News Nation on Wednesday that FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino would unseal evidence related to the investigation of Jeffrey Epstein if their apartment had the ability to do so. And here's the source saying, quote, I believe with full certainty that if Kash Patel and Dan Bongino had the power to operate separately from the DOJ, they would have unsealed and they would have released every single piece of evidence they could while protecting victims months ago. So that came out, and apparently Pam did not appreciate it. And according to this piece, she was really, really angry, and she accused him in this meeting of leaking that idea to News Nation. And an altercation happened, and she made her position clear, and he made his position clear, and it didn't go very well. It was not very friendly. It was very heated, and Bongino left very angry. And I think that, she's going after him, right, for releasing this information, for this tape. And he is furious because he's the one that found this missing minute, and he doesn't appreciate that there's a missing minute. I mean, that doesn't really look good in terms of him and his credibility. And he's saying, well, what the heck am I doing here, right? Like, I'm the one who actually thought that they really ought to release everything. So the question becomes now, does Dan stay or does he move? Again, here's the News Nation article mentioned that a lot of this fighting was about. I think, between you and me, that Dan doesn't need this gig. And Dan has got to be frustrated at the lack of speed. I mean, here, I'm kind of frustrated, right? You guys are kind of frustrated. We're sitting here going, well, is Letitia James ever going to be held accountable for her alleged mortgage fraud? I mean, what's going on? Like, what is taking so long? And didn't Pam Bondi actually say, like, within the first couple weeks that she was suing not Karen Bass, she's suing Karen Bass now, but Kathy Hochul and the DMV head in New York, along with Letitia James, and we're sitting here going, well, what's going on with that one, right? I mean, time is sort of flying by, and I get that it's complicated, I get that it's hard, I get that it's kind of thankless, but something. Remember?
This is a new DOJ, and we are taking steps to protect Americans, American citizens, and angel moms, like the mom standing right behind me, who you're going to hear from in a moment.
Okay. So we're still waiting. Nothing's going anywhere. We seem to be kind of in a standstill. And so if you're Dan Bongino, you had a good thing going. You got a great podcast. You got a lot of support within the community. And now all of a sudden you're the guy who has to try and explain all this stuff away. And you can't get the answers you want from Pam Bondi? I don't think that's going to fly. And I don't think it's about the case. I actually think it's about her and his belief. And she is not competent. And you don't want to be working with somebody who's not competent because, your reputation's on the line. And so if you're out there scooping up evidence and she can't actually, deliver on anything, and maybe you get stuck having to deliver messages that aren't so hot, I don't think he's going to do it. I think he's got plenty of other options and plenty of other things to do, and he'd much rather be out there criticizing her, frankly, and anybody else who's not getting the gig done. So I would not be surprised, and I think it'd be a huge loss for the administration, an absolute huge loss. He's such a good guy, and he's so important to them. I mean, they are making some cleanup attempts there over at Secret Service, and a lot of that is generated, of course, from him, given his own background, but they need him there. He's loyal to the president. He's a good guy, through and through, and I don't see the president necessarily getting rid of Pam right now, But I think he's going to say, look, it's coming down to me or her, take your pick. And if the president goes with Pam, then Dan is probably out of there. And hey, here's the good news. He can go back to his show. We'll get to see more of him that way. And I think that he serves a really important purpose, being on the outside, if you would, being able to criticize what's going down there in the White House. So big story, of course, that we're following today. And I've been trying to do some reporting on another one. John Brennan, as I said, coming apart at the seams right now. This is a former CIA director for Barack Obama. And he's, of course, now an MSNBC hack. I mean, like epic hack. This is one of the guys that was on the 51X Spooks thing, right? You know, they had to write that letter saying there was no way in HELL's creation that Hunter Biden laptop was real. That was just misinformation fed you courtesy of the Russians and Rudy Giuliani, except that it was real, okay? It was absolutely real. Anyway, this is the guy who's the architect behind the Russia thing. And, you know, it's coming back to haunt him. It really is. It's significantly coming back to haunt him because he's a guy who I think they're gonna find was up to some no good stuff. FBI launching criminal investigations of John Brennan and James Comey. That story coming out just recently. And this Comey investigation, this Brennan investigation has, well, John Brennan kind of breaking down. As you can imagine, I mean, I'd be pretty upset too, wouldn't you?
I keep thinking, okay, this is the authoritarian playbook. We've seen this play out so many times. And unfortunately, I think we're seeing it play out. And a number of academics and writers have pointed out, and Carl Schmitt, who was a German jurist, political philosopher and writer in the 1930s, his thesis, which Nazi Germany basically took up, was don't worry about doing something that is ethical or principled or good or right. Do whatever you can to win, vanquish your adversaries, vanquish your enemies. And unfortunately, we have seen that happening overseas. We've seen it in Viktor Orban in Hungary. We've seen it with Vladimir Putin. We see it in China, other places. We see it also in terms of, some of the foreign policies that are being implemented, including, in the Middle East right now. So I really am very worried that what we're seeing now in this chapter of American history is a sad deterioration of, I think, the respect for the rule of law and for our system of government. And if a president of the United States is willing to weaponize intelligence and justice and, law enforcement investigators, and the people who head up these departments and agencies are willing to bow to it, we really are in deep, deep trouble, which was why I think so many people are worried about the direction this country is taking.
Maybe you're worried. Right? Only you seem to be the one that's really worried right now. Well, you and some of your former associates, and maybe some of the people at the State Department that are getting tossed. But this guy is he's kind of tricky in that he's a total politician. He's a total hack. I mean, you'd think you could expect more from the former head of the CIA, but let's not forget where he works right now, MSNBC contributor. And there is this little moment in time that was captured in 2017 where he was being asked about Russia stuff. And instead of saying like, oh, I believe in evidence, he actually said he doesn't do evidence. No, he does intel. He doesn't do evidence. I'm sitting there going, wait. Like intelligence is one thing, evidence is another. So maybe you use some intelligence, you get wind of something, and then you try and track it down. Like, wouldn't you have done that with Russia? Wouldn't you have said, oh, okay, I'm looking at this dossier, and wouldn't it be worthwhile for me to figure out where the dossier came from? I mean, that's what I do as a journalist, as a reporter. I'd say, okay, well, who's the source on this? And what would you find out? Oh, opposition research. Perkins Coie law firm that works for Hillary Clinton, that went and hired Fusion GPS, that went and hired Christopher Steele. Oh, I see. So you'd try and understand the sourcing. And then maybe you'd say, well, let's try and double check this. But nope, none of that happened, because you know what? They probably knew the sourcing all along. I mean, they're using intel to try and keep themselves in power. You see how bad this is going to be for one John Brennan and possibly James Comey. Here he is in 2017. I don't do evidence.
Did you find direct evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Putin in Moscow while you were there?
Mr. Rooney, I never was an FBI agent. I never was a prosecutor, so I really don't do evidence. I do intelligence throughout the course of my career. As an intelligence professional, what we try to do is to make sure that we provide all relevant information to the Bureau if there is an investigation underway that they are looking into criminal activity. As I mentioned in my opening statement, I was convinced in the summer that the Russians were trying to interfere in the election. And they were very aggressive. It was a multifaceted effort. And I wanted to make sure that we were able to expose as much of that as possible.
But was there intelligence that said that the Trump campaign was colluding with Moscow during their campaign?
There was intelligence that the Russian intelligence services were actively involved in this effort. And having been involved in many counterintelligence cases in the past, I know what the Russians try to do. They try to suborn individuals. And they try to get individuals, including U.S. persons, to act on their behalf either wittingly or unwittingly. And I was worried by a number of the contacts that the Russians had with U.S. persons. And so therefore, by the time I left office on January 20th, I had unresolved questions in my mind as to whether or not the Russians had been successful in getting U.S. persons involved in the campaign or not to work on their behalf, again, either in a witting or unwitting fashion. And so, therefore, I felt as though the FBI investigation was certainly well-founded and needed to look into those issues.
Did evidence exist of collusion, coordination, conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russian state actors at the time you learned of 2016 efforts?
I encountered and am aware of information and intelligence that revealed contacts and interactions between Russian officials and U.S. persons involved in the Trump campaign that I was concerned about because of known Russian efforts to suborn such individuals. And it raised questions in my mind, again, whether or not the Russians were able to gain the cooperation of those individuals. I don't know whether or not such collusion, that's your term, such collusion existed. I don't know.
I think he did. I think he did. And I think that you actually tried to use this as a way to try and take Donald Trump down. I mean, my own personal view of this, but it's backed up by the fact that you were part of that dossier, forgive me, not just the dossier stuff, Russia, 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 but you were part of that letter. The idea that 51X spooks and hacks would sign on to that. It was our former Secretary of State, Tony Blinken's idea, believe it or not, and he worked with Mike Morrell to get it all done, who was the deputy director of the CIA, and John Brennan was one out there like saying all this crazy stuff about Donald Trump. And the next thing you know, you got Jimmy Carter saying, well, he's not my president. He was not elected legitimately. This was bought by the Russians. Whoa. Okay? Whoa. That's like a pretty aggressive thing to say. So why did they do this? What was behind it? We need to know. I'll tell you, Comey doesn't want us to know. This is why they were freaking out about the polls when they realized that Donald Trump was going to win again. Because, they're all going to be in trouble. It's all going to come out.
When you think about a second Trump administration, what do you think the implications would be for the FBI?
Oh, serious, for the Justice Department and the FBI, because Trump is coming for those institutions. He knows their power, and I think he has regrets that he didn't work hard enough to corrupt them last time. So he's coming for them, and that's a danger for all Americans. He's going to put people in positions in those organizations. He didn't have all-stars the last time. He'll have the bottom of the barrel this time, but people who will want to do his will, and that should worry every American. This election matters. Because of a reason like that, people have to participate. You cannot sit on the sideline. I don't care how you feel about Joe Biden, you must vote for him because the consequences on the other side are too severe.
No, for you again. The consequences. For everybody else, I think they're kind of happy that we're going to have some transparency, shed some light on all this stuff, right? About time, I think. you know, this criminal investigation, it's going to be a big deal, and it's going to be one to follow. And it's one that I'm at least encouraged to see, because I think that you need some kind of closure to all of that. I never felt like we really got that last time around. And you know what? They're coming back with a vengeance this time. It's a whole different team. And they've had 4 years on the sidelines to think through all this and to know what they wanted to do, which again, you know, that's one of my frustrations with Pam, because she should be moving faster. But anyway, at least we now know there was a criminal investigation that has hit Comey and Brennan. Meanwhile, some of these mayors around the country are going to find that there are investigations and possibly arrests being made of them. I want to show you that this is a, well, hang on one second, we're going to get to this, because they're talking about no amnesty right now for any of these migrants that are here in this country illegally. And you know who does not like that? One single bit is Karen Bass out in California. It's Letitia James, the Attorney General in New York. It's Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York. It's Michelle Wu, the mayor of Boston. And it's this guy in Chicago who said something so incredibly outrageous this week that I got to play it again, because it's really important you hear this. He's got his own view on how he can sort of run the world there in Chicago, like it's its own little country. Because the Constitution doesn't matter? Watch.
Division. Look, we are a welcoming city ordinance. Our local police department will not ever cooperate with ICE. Whatever their constitutional authority is.
Mr. President, your beloved New York City may well be led by a communist soon, Zoran Mandami, who in his nomination speech said he will defy ICE and will not allow ICE to arrest criminal aliens in New York City. Your message to communist Zoran Mandami?
Well, then we'll have to arrest him.
You heard that. Well, we'll have to arrest him. That's the bottom line. We will have to arrest him. Because you know what? You can't just sit there and say, I'm going to do the opposite of what is actually federal law. So he's making that point on the guy who wants to be the next communist mayor of New York City. So when you consider what Brandon Johnson is saying out in Chicago, or what Karen Bass is saying, I think you actually might be looking at, if we could get a DOJ that would get off their tail, right? Actual real problems for all of these people. So consider this. It's not just us that are saying, what the heck is going on? For Brandon Johnson, he's got a problem with his electorate as well. I mean, the voters have had it up to here. Like this woman, watch.
You all sit up there and said you will not allow Trump to come in here and get these illegals. Yeah, you can smile. We're in $1 billion deficit. And you spent half of our money, half of that on illegals. You campaigned and doubled down that you would not raise property tax. You wanted to raise our taxes $300 million. They shut it down. Now we back here for $150 million. Okay. See, this is what we asking now. Since you want to crash out, some of y'all say y'all willing to go to jail for it. Trump, Tom Homan, make an example of this right here first. Please come here first. Spend our tax dollars to go. Michael Rodriguez, you said to take Trump to court to protect these illegals. That's cool, because we about to make all of y'all aldermen famous. Y'all think this is how it's gonna ride? I think not. Flip Chicago red. We not playing.
Wow, okay? And she's not the only one, okay? Voters are really kind of getting annoyed here. Here's another one.
You got Kash Patel and Pam Bondi that you're going to have to deal with sooner than later. Then it's going to be an audit. Next, it's going to be an investigation. Then it's going to be an indictment.
Let's hope so, right? I mean, look, I do think that there's some funny things that are going on in Chicago. I mean, let's be honest. Chicago politics has a history of some funny things. But this guy to just blatantly say that, like he doesn't care about the Constitution at all. I mean, voters are like, hey, you know what? You gotta, because you gotta protect the people that are actually here. Here's another one.
Mr. Brandon Johnson, I'm up here. I am speaking right now, so I would love your undivided attention, please. I'll wait. So this just proves to you the lack of leadership that you show in this city. You can't even give me straight eye contact. Now, I'm going to let you know now, the people of Chicago, we're done with you. It is insane how we have been voting Democrat for over 60 plus years, and we've never seen a change from people like you, Lori Lightfoot, Robbie Manuel. It is insane. Chicago was 37% red. In 2020, it was only 15%. So we're waking up. So you can pretend that this isn't happening, but I know for a fact that you will not have that seat the next election.
You so strong about protecting those aliens, but you won't do nothing for the U.S. citizens.
I think he's got a problem, right? I mean, I think people are getting to the point of no return, and that Chicago is a disaster. And if you're going to sit there and use people's tax dollars to support a group of people who came here illegally and that may have committed crimes, and you're going to fight for them more than you're going to fight for your constituents that are trying to play by the rules, then I think Mayor Johnson, you may have a problem. You know, Lori Lightfoot ran into a little bit of this, right? That's actually how you got the gig. So I suspect Chicago is primed, one, for a new mayor. Anybody can come in there and have a real good shot at winning there. Somebody who's actually promising to do the right thing for the people of Chicago as opposed to the people of the world, right? In this borderless society that everybody seems to want. On top of that, there's another factor at play. And it's like DEI on steroids. And it's like, hang on, buddy, did you not get the memo? Everybody else got the memo. Disney got the memo, and Disney's suffering the fate of this memo, right? Because now there's an investigation, courtesy of Brennan and the FCC, looking into constitutional violations. Harvard University's gotten the memo. Supreme Court said, you know, you can't just let someone in because of the color of their skin. I mean, you cannot be picking positions in a company or in a school or anywhere else just because somebody checks a box. Thank you very much. I want to play this clip and listen to this guy, again, Mayor of Chicago, saying all he's saying about how he hires. And think about it if it were like tables turned. What if this were, I don't know, like a white mayor saying, I hired this white man and this white woman and this white man and this white man and this white woman. I mean, you'd be like, have we not gotten beyond this, people? We are a meritocracy. That is what makes us the United States of America. We are a brilliant capitalist meritocracy, and nobody can compete with it. But the socialists come along and the communists come along, and they want to divide and conquer. So therefore, it's all about what you are on the exterior as opposed to who you are as a person and what you can deliver. Listen to this. This is sickening.
Detractors that will push back on me and say, you know, the only thing that the mayor talks about is the hiring of black people. No, what I'm saying is when you hire our people, we always look out for everybody else. We are the most generous people on the planet. I don't know too many cultures that have play cousins. That's how generous we are. We just make somebody a family member, right? That's just how we are. And so business and economic neighborhood development, the deputy mayor is a black woman. Department of Planning and Development is a black woman. Infrastructure deputy mayor is a black woman. Chief operations officer is a black man. Budget director is a black woman. Senior advisor is a black man. And I'm laying that out because when you ask, how do we ensure that our people get a chance to grow their business?
It's just sort of mind-boggling. And, you know, Leslie, I'm looking at your comment there saying we're never going to get past this. I mean, I hope we can get past this. Donald Trump has passed it. It's not like he's like, oh, well, this guy's this and this guy's that and that gal's this. By the way, first Treasury Secretary of the United States of America that happens to be gay, all right? I don't see them like touting that or screaming it from the rooftops because frankly, it doesn't really matter, right? You want a Treasury Secretary that's competent. And Scott Bessent, according to all my sources, many of whom have worked directly with him, is absolutely positively brilliant. Okay, he is a bright guy. So if you want the best person in the job, you don't care about all this other stuff because you just want to be the most competitive country you can be. And you know, the voters are on to this too. Listen to this one.
Thank the DOJ for opening up an investigation on the mayor's insane, out-of-control DEI hiring. You said in a recent interview that black people don't just look out for ourselves, but for everyone else as well. Well, clearly they're not getting the memo because they're destroying downtown and they're destroying the city with things like teen takeover. And when you say things like this, it just makes you look more incompetent and racist as a mayor. You need to start pushing more law and order in the city of Chicago. Help the police do their job. I am asking you all to vote for the curfew and make the curfew time permanent for teens. Hold the parents accountable as well. Teens are doing majority of the crime, and you know it, Brandon Johnson. They're even putting it on YouTube. They're openly mocking you. They're mocking you on Instagram and YouTube and all social media platforms, and you allow it every single day. Now,
you do, right? Because you're not doing anything to actually fix the situation. But this is what we're seeing over and over and over again, really throughout the country, okay? So you got crime-ridden cities where mayors are like perfectly fine to just allow it to continue happening. You go out to LA, for example, with Karen Bass, and Karen Bass was furious because DHS showed up at MacArthur Park and they were on horses. And they said, we're going to do a sweep through and we're going to make it very clear that our presence here is known. Now she's all mad. She's like, oh, well, you didn't even arrest anyone. Maybe it wasn't even about that. Could you ever think for 2 seconds, Karen Bassett, it might have been about the optics. Maybe they actually wanted to send a message to people. Stop loitering in the park, okay? Because the park is for the people. You have restaurants in the area, local businesses in the area, some of which have had to leave or shut down because the danger of the situation there, given the element of who's in the park, for goodness sakes. And yeah, Karen was livid. She's pulling a LaMonica there, going down and saying, I'm going to fight this myself if I have to get up on a horse. That would be funny.
I am going to say.
Mayor Bass, I need to get my phone and we're departing.
Okay. All right. Mayor Bass.
Mayor Bass.
Any
comment, Mayor Bass?
Thank you.
Mayor Bass, any comment?
Yes, my comment is they need to leave, and they need to leave right now. They need to leave because this is unacceptable.
Who did you speak with?
Just wait and see.
Mayor Bass,
They will be leaving soon.
Mayor, who did you speak with on the phone just now? Who did you speak with on the phone?
The head of customs.
Wow.
So Karen Bass is trying to make her weight known, but you know she can't compete with LaMonica. We know that. She can't. She just can't. This is the tape to end all tapes. I'll tell you. It'll be great to see this unfold in court. Don't you think? I mean, I'm waiting to see this whole thing unfold in court because LaMonica is going to have a lot of explaining to do. Oh, whoa, did you see that? Wait a second. I actually have never seen, let me go back and look at that. Okay, watch her. She's the lady in red. Okay, watch this one clip. Whoa, again. Am I seeing things? It looks like she's kind of giving a righty or a lefty to the, whoa, okay. I hadn't quite noticed that.
Give me a break. Did you see her? She was out of control. Those days are over. The days of woke. The days of woke. No, I didn't. The days of woke are over. That woman, I have no idea who she is. That woman was out of control. She was shoving federal agents. She was out of control. The days of that crap are over in this country. We're going to have law and order.
Yes. Because we need it, okay? You can't have this craziness. I just showed you that. You know the DHS PR person, Tricia McLaughlin, she says they've got more video. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing LaMonica have her day in court because this is all going to come out. And you know what? You just can't do it. Like, I don't care if you're a congressperson, you're a senator, you're a governor, like none of that matters. You don't go and like hit ICE agents. Like, what kind of world or third world nation are we living in where that is okay?
We should let viewers know there will likely be more arrests coming. We actually have body camera footage of some of these members of Congress assaulting our ICE enforcement officers, including body slamming a female ICE officer. So we will be showing that to viewers very shortly.
You say a
The
video
American
of
people should
members
know
of
the facts.
Congress body slamming ICE
That's correct.
officials?
That's correct, sir. It's disgusting.
Okay, and so if you have that video, are you suggesting that members of Congress will be arrested who were there yesterday?
This is an ongoing investigation, and that is definitely on the table.
Who has the video?
She goes on to say DHS has the video. So this is really kind of, in my estimation, pretty amazing. On top of that, you have Donald Trump out saying there's literally going to be no amnesty whatsoever for any of these people. You got Tom Homan, who echoed the president just moments ago here today. Let me show you this clip. Tom Homan saying, no, I'm with the president, no amnesty.
I can tell you one thing, though. One thing I'm reading in the media that's not true, there will be no amnesty.
Support an American workforce. So all of the above.
We've got to give the farmers the people they need, but we're not talking amnesty. Laura, do you want to say something about that?
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah. So, no amnesty. You hear that? Oh, Brooke Rollins said it too. You're going to hear it from every single department head over and over and over again.
I think I answered the second question, where we are on farm labor, a little bit earlier. But what I will say is that Lori Chavez de Rimmer is our Secretary of Labor. And the H-2A visa program, all of the programs that inure to moving in seasonal ag workers are under Secretary Chavez de Rimmer. She has been working around the clock with her team. I think we'll probably hear a little bit more about this today, and the conversations will continue. But I can't underscore enough, there will be no amnesty. The mass deportations continue, but in a strategic way, and we move the workforce towards automation and 100% American participation, which again, with 34 million people, able-bodied adults on Medicaid, we should be able to do that fairly quickly. Thank you.
I mean, we should, right? We should. So, he wants to make sure the farmers are protected, but it doesn't mean that if you come here on some kind of work visa that you're going to be able to apply for amnesty and you're going to be able to stay here forever. Think about the 532,000 people from Haiti, Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela that now are getting the word, sorry, those little special visas that Biden gave you, we don't even understand why. Like, what was that? 532,000 people? I mean, I guess you're sending them all to New York, putting them up in hotels. I guess that's about increasing your gerrymandering skills because now you get a bigger population center. You get a few more representatives from New York. Is that the idea? I don't know. I think it's very suspicious, though, on top of which, of course, you had New York looking to put 800,000 people into eligibility to vote that were non-citizens until the appellate court struck it down. I mean, this is kind of wild. You have to understand and think about their motivations, but we're going to go back to the laws, and not, as Kristi Noem well said.
My only question to you, I'd say a question back to you is, which laws in the United States should be enforced and which ones shouldn't? I mean, my job, here's the deal, guys. My job is not to pick and choose which laws we enforce and which ones we don't. We have laws in this country, and they matter. If you want the law changed, go to Congress. When's the last time you went to Capitol Hill and told your senator or representative to change it? That's what they need to do. This is the perfect time for Congress to make a decision on how they want people in this country to be able to have an opportunity to come here legally and to fix this. We, as law enforcement officers and as a national security department and agency, my job is to uphold the law, and that's what I will continue to do.
Well, you know what? Here's the reality of it. Look at this. Naturalization Clause, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4. The Congress shall have power to establish rule of naturalization. Okay? Like, it's not that hard. It's just not that hard. And yet they're trying to make this seem like the federal government is the bad guy. The federal government is the boogeyman. You're seeing it over and over again, including, for example, on none other than that lovely show, that should be canceled, but somehow miraculously survives. The View. Here's Ana Navarro speaking. I want to show you this, guys. You know, Ana Navarro has been in this country something like 2 decades, but she's still got one heck of an accent. I'm kind of wondering about one of you guys was mentioning that in the chat just yesterday. Here she is.
This is horrible. What's happening is horrible. If you are out there in the Everglades, driving out there and getting out of your car to take a picture like if it was the Eiffel Tower, you are a racist and you are a horrible human being. And, you know, I don't think, and by the way, there's like Cubans who are legal permanent residents who are in that detention center right now, because this is not just about undocumented immigrants. When you are taking away temporary protective status, when you are putting legal permanent residents in detention and deporting them, when you are threatening U.S. citizens that you don't like, that you're going to take away their citizenship, naturalized ones, when you are talking about birthright citizenship and taking that away, this is not about going after the criminals and the gang members. This is about making America white again and otherizing everybody who is an immigrant. Because think about this, just think about this. At the same time that they are rounding up Latino immigrants, brown immigrants, they are opening up the doors for white South Afrikaners fleeing from a non-existent genocide. And so look, this is about, I think, 1, deporting people, and 2, scaring people out of this country. That is why he said, you know, he has sent people to a gulag in El Salvador, disappeared them, a gulag where people only leave if they're dead. That is why he's using military personnel in LA to go into parks where children are playing, to terrorize people.
And why are Republican congressmen putting up with this?
Because they're a bunch of cowards, as is Marco Rubio, whose grandfather had a deportation order at a time. And I wonder, you know, and Marco Rubio, and I'm going to speak to Marco because I've supported him. He was my friend for so many years. Damn it. He built his career on railing against the dictatorships in Cuba and Venezuela and Nicaragua. And he is standing in complicit silence as this administration returns people to those cruel dictatorships.
Well, also utilizing his being of immigrant family members as something too loud and like build it off. When he ran, those were things he said. I'm from an immigrant family, so he rose up on that.
Aren't the Trump kids also from immigrant families? I mean,
they're all from immigrant families. Melania is a naturalized citizen. Is she going to get? Is he going to take her citizenship away? I don't know. Well, but I want to say one other thing about following the money, because I think that you made a good point, Sarah. Because who built and is making money off of Alcatraz? Republican donors. They invested millions to elect congresspeople, to elect Donald Trump, and they are getting rewarded. Democrats are saying this was a pay-for-play scheme. That's what Alcatraz is also about.
They weren't done. You know, CNN also is having a bit of a meltdown, but these people are just not done. They cannot get their heads around the idea of actually having law and order. I want to go back to Obama. Remember, Obama was deporting 1,000 people a day because the idea was if you're here illegally, you're here illegally, and we have to let you go. Now, all of a sudden, it's turned into, okay, you're getting sent to a gulag, and then you saw what many of the others have said, right, in terms of actually making comparisons, heinous comparisons with 1930s Germany.
The way that I think if you're somebody who's really disturbed by things like alligator Alcatraz and feels like the targeting of certain migrants is making you really uncomfortable, call your lawmaker, because what I am seeing is an uptick in rhetoric against CBP and ICE enforcers who are dealing with this problem because they're being told by the President of the United States that they have to. And then this past week, there was a very dangerous attack on CBP officials in McAllen, Texas. Several people were injured. The perpetrator was actually neutralized. But that's also something we don't want to see, is an uptick in violence against law enforcement who are doing their jobs. So if you have a problem with this, talk to your lawmaker. That's the place to do it.
If they would do their jobs the way that I think they should be doing their jobs, which is unmasked without disappearing people from the streets, I don't think that the public would feel as endangered. Because if someone approaches my loved one who's undocumented with a mask, how do I know that they're actual law enforcement? How do I know that they work for for ICE. So that's one thing I'll say.
There's actually people who have impersonated ICE officers.
But do they show an ID?
They don't show IDs. They're not dressed appropriately. They're not flagged, and they're masked. And so, in my world, if you mask yourself because you don't want to be seen, because there will be a reckoning for some of the actions that actual law enforcement have done. But I'll also say this, I don't want to hear anything ever in this country again about not being able to house people, not being able to, no affordable housing, because they put this thing up in 8 days. 8 days. So where there is a will, there's a way. There is a way.
But it's also not where we would house people in America. We should want better conditions for undocumented migrants and Americans.
Well, I think there's the big, beautiful bill.
Look. This has gotten to the point where I think everybody can be in agreement that there's too much division. Again, I just go back to what the Democrats once said. I can quote Dianne Feinstein, the late Dianne Feinstein, who said, we're not going to become the welfare state for Mexico. We're just not. Or go back to Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama or even Joe Biden or anyone in recent times. And they all said the same thing. You cannot have people coming here unchecked. We just can't do it. We can't afford it. And then at some point, I think some little light bulb went off in their head after Donald Trump, of course, came out and said, I'm going to fight this. And, think about what they were saying about Melania, et cetera. The difference is she came here legally. There's a difference between legal immigration and illegal immigration. There is, okay? How is it suddenly wrong for anybody to be against illegal immigration? I mean, you lost me, okay? And you're losing a lot of people. And I just think this is going to continue to be a losing story for all of you. And Donald Trump, he was asked, for example, what do you think about the Padilla bill that would require ICE agents to always wear not wear a mask, forbid them from wearing a mask. And he said, you know what he said? I really question these guys. I question how loyal they are to our country because it feels as though they are on the other side. And that's a real concern. So The View doing what The View does, right? And they're flipping out about all of this as to be expected. But, they are who they are. I want to go back to the Dan Bongino story for a moment. Again, I've been doing a lot of reporting on this, and my sources say he's done, like he's out of there, unless we actually see Pam Bondi go. Because in his estimation, he's kind of having to take the fall for, and this is, by the way, not specifically his. I'm interpreting how he thinks, and I spoke to some sources close to him who said, he's not going to go for this, right? Like, this is not fair for him and for his reputation. And just to bring you guys up to speed, this is the story that's breaking today. Dan Bongino and Kash Patel were put out there, and they were told that, or maybe they weren't told, I don't know, but they had to carry a certain party line. And we saw them with Mario Bartiromo actually saying, there's no there there. And I think it caused a lot of people to kind of stop and wonder, what is this really about? And then after they told us we were going to get this tape, remember the tape that we did get? It turned out there was a missing moment or a missing minute in the tape. And that's all causing additional concerns right now. So at this moment in time, I would not be surprised if Dan Bongino decided not to come back to work on Monday. Here's CNN reporting the story. We have more on this.
All right, this breaking news. Sources tell CNN that Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino has told people that he's considering resigning amid a major clash between the FBI and DOJ over the continued fallout from the release or lack thereof of the Jeffrey Epstein memo. Joining us right now on the phone is CNN anchor and chief White House correspondent Caitlin Collins. Caitlin, what more are you learning?
Yeah, Fred, it remains to be seen if he actually follows through with what he has told colleagues. But what we do know is that Dan Bongino has told people he is considering resigning as the deputy director of the FBI over the fallout that has continued ever since this memo was released last Sunday. The anger inside the MAGA base has only continued to grow instead of going away, as some officials inside hoped it would. And now our colleagues, along with Christian Holmes, Hannah Rabinowitz, and Evan Perez, we're hearing that he's considering resigning after they had this heated confrontation with the Attorney General Pam Bondi over the handling of this earlier this week. And basically there was a meeting at the White House where the FBI Director, Kash was there, the White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles. They were questioned about whether they were part of a story, that there was basically some infighting over how this came out, and this memo that said we're not going to be releasing any more information related to Jeffrey Epstein. And I should note that we are told Bongino denied leaking any story to this outlet that it was reported on. But there has been a lot of fighting between Attorney General Pam Bondi specifically and the leadership over at the FBI over who's to blame in this situation. I think the context here is obviously Dan Bongino, Kash Patel. They came from this MAGA world where they themselves had pushed a lot of questions about the so-called client list that Epstein had beforehand. And now the MAGA base is just not pleased or satisfied with what they've said in this memo that came out unsigned from the Justice Department and the FBI on Sunday night. So what we are told is Dan Bongino did not show up to work today, that he is essentially not there out of protest. But whether or not he actually follows through on this still remains to be seen. We're still reporting that out. But it just speaks to the backlash that the White House is very much feeling and understanding after this memo came out, despite President Trump the other day in the cabinet room asking, who still cares about this? One thing we know is the MAGA base certainly does.
Yeah.
All right, Caitlin Collins, thanks so much for that.
So just to add a little bit more perspective, knowing what I know about some of the personalities here. So Dan, I think if before he saw whatever files he saw, was pretty darn convinced. And you can go back and you can watch a show, and he was very convinced that there was some stuff there, right? And it certainly seemed that way. I mean, consider the fact that Pam Bondi was on Fox saying, hey, we got the list. I got the list. It's sitting right there on my desk. What the heck was she doing if she didn't have the list? Lady, do you not read your files before you go on Fox and say this?
DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. So she hadn't seen anything, but she was like, I got it. And then she was so excited she got it. She brought in all these influencers from Twitter to the White House, sat them all down, handed them binders, and turns out there was nothing in the binders. There was no information there. And then she's like, oh, mea culpa. I didn't realize this. I'm kind of mad because I'm blaming the FBI for not giving me what I needed. So that might have been the beginning of the tension. You think about that with Pam Bondi and the influencers that she was bringing in, and then all of a sudden she went on to Hannity's show. Let's see if we have this clip, because she's like, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. I promise you, I'm going to have everything. And that was when we saw the guy who was the head of the FBI in New York, who allegedly was resisting some of this. That was when he actually made the decision to resign, but he, I guess, had to. Now, I do recall her saying something about a truckload of documents. Do you guys remember that? That she had it all? The truckloads of documents? Oh, I got it. I'm going to show you right here.
We all did. And the FBI handed over a couple hundred pages of documents. But, Sean, I gave them a deadline of Friday at 8 a.m. to get us everything. And a source had told me where the documents were being kept. Southern District of New York, shock. So we got them all by, hopefully all of them, Friday at 8 a.m., thousands of pages of documents. I have the FBI going through them, and Kash is also, now that we have Kash here, it's a game changer, of course, and Kash is going to, Director Patel, is going to get us a detailed report as to why the FBI withheld all of those documents.
Okay, I want to be clear because I think people got frustrated because they were expecting more. You were expecting more, and you didn't find out less than 24 hours before the release. You got a whistleblower that confirmed that there were way more documents that they were supposed to turn over, and then you found out just before that.
Well, sure. And you're looking at these documents going, these aren't all the Epstein files. You know, there were flight logs, there were names and victims' names. And we're going, where's the rest of the stuff? And that's what the FBI had turned over to us. And so a source said, whoa, all this evidence is sitting in the Southern District of New York.
Yeah.
So based on that, I gave them the deadline, Friday at 8, a truckload of evidence arrived. It's now in the possession of the FBI. Kash is going to get me and himself, really, a detailed report as to why all these documents and evidence had been withheld. And, you know, we're going to go through it as fast as we can, but go through it very cautiously to protect all the victims of Epstein, because there are a lot of victims.
Well, you had identified in phase one over 254. Okay. Now, is that the only thing that would be redacted? Will everything else be made public that you get in your possession?
Yeah, the FBI hasn't had, obviously, they haven't looked at the thousands of pages of documents that they've just received Friday. Yeah. But Kash has a team going through them, and it's always about protecting the victim. But you know what? We believe in transparency, and America has the right to know. The Biden administration sat on these documents. No one did anything with them. And why were they sitting in the Southern District of New York? I want a full report on that. You know, sadly, these people don't believe in transparency, but I think more, unfortunately, I think a lot of them don't believe in honesty. And it's a new day, it's a new administration, and everything's going to come out to the public. The public has a right to know. Americans have a right to know.
And that goes the same with the JFK files,
JFK,
RFK files,
Martin
MLK.
Luther King. Yep, absolutely.
What are the things that, and maybe some people don't understand the need to redact. In the case of a victim, that should be pretty obvious to people. What are the other things that maybe you'd have to redact?
Well,
national security?
No, of course, national security, some grand jury information, which is always going to be confidential. But we'll see. Let's look through them as fast as we can, get it out to the American people, because the American people have a right to know, not only on that, but on Kennedy, on Martin Luther King, on all of these cases that the Biden administration has just sat on for all these years. So yeah, it's really. It's not sad. It's infuriating that these people thought that they could sit on this information, but they can't. It's a new day, and we believe in transparency, and it's going to come out. And when we redact things, Sean, what we're going to do is not just pull pages out like they used to do. If something's redacted, you will know the line, and you will know why it's redacted, a victim's name, identifying information of a victim.
So I don't get it. Guys, something is up. Okay, like she was all over this. She was all excited about this. She was, you know, destined to get justice, and all of a sudden, not the case. And then Bongino and Kash Patel are getting made into the fall guys for this somehow, some way. I mean, I'm sorry, but if there's no there, then why is Ghislaine Maxwell still in prison? I mean, clearly something went down. You guys can't get any evidence on it? Anything at all? That doesn't add up, okay? I'm just saying. And I think Dan Bongino, who I've known a long time and is a pretty true blue kind of guy, he doesn't want to be put in the position of having to cover for Pam and God knows what's going on. No. Of course, the mainstream media has it slightly different. Like, you got MSNBC just kind of loving this in kind of a twisted way, because they're trying to say now, that this is all about him trying to go back to his media business, and this is his way of saving himself. No, I'm going to just tell you, I know Dan, and he's a terrific patriot. He didn't have to take this gig in the first place, okay? He just didn't. But he wanted to do the right thing for the country, and he thought he had a chance to expose some things. So he went in there and did it. And I'm sorry, but when you get somebody at DOJ who, and I get that it's a hard job, I get it, but doesn't seem to be following through, but makes tons of promises, that's got to be frustrating. And I think he's just said enough is enough. Anyway, hear what the MSNBCs of the world are saying.
They haven't been able to do that.
I mean, Bongino didn't make enough money to buy T-shirts that fit. Vaughn, what is the, I mean, so Bongino feels like there's more and he wants more of the Epstein files released. I mean, that seems like an absolutely catastrophic outcome. I never thought I'd say this, but Donald Trump better hope that Dan Bongino doesn't leave and go back to his podcast where he made millions of dollars attacking the FBI, because his base is about to absolutely spill over, and whatever toxic brew is inside there is about to come spilling out if he leaves of the Epstein files. I mean, what is the degree of alarm from the folks that'll be left holding the bag?
Okay, I think that's the part, Nicole, that I think that folks need to understand here is that they have gotten severe pushback from MAGA worlds in their base for not providing everything on Jeffrey Epstein. And so in response, they really only have one choice if you're looking at this in some strategical ballgame sense, and that is to effectively shift the blame to somebody else. And that's Attorney General Pam Bondi. And Pam Bondi hasn't done herself any good by handing out those binders to those social media right-wing influencers a couple months ago that ended up having nothing in them. Look at Laura Loomer has suddenly become a voice of, you know, demanding transparency, right? I mean, we know the conspiracy theories that she has continually spewed and spread, and she is she's vile in the way that she describes or calls other people that she perceives as political opponents. But the one thing that she does have going for her is the argument that MAGA has the obligation to uphold to the ideas of the transparency that for the last years they claimed that they would bring if Donald Trump came back into office.
My head's about to explode. I wish so badly that I didn't care about facts, because this would be so.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, her head's about to explode. That and a whole lot of other. Anyway, you know what? MSNBC will spin this as, okay, Bongino just, wants to save his tail. I'm going to just tell you, I know the guy. And I think if he's that upset about something, it's worth paying attention to. And I think there are a lot of reasons for people to sort of question, and I know we all have. And look, I try to be patient. I'm a pretty patient person, and I understand the insane task that Pam Bondi has ahead of her vis-a-vis, Kathy Hochul and Karen Bass and the Chicago mayor that we were just talking about. And of course, Letitia James, we're waiting on that because the mortgage fraud allegations. There is a lot on her plate. But this is when you need a really good manager, like a killer CEO, right? You need a CEO for the DOJ, like somebody who's going to come in there and doesn't have to go on TV all the time. Like maybe Pam's the one that goes on TV. She looks cute on TV. Great. You need a chief of staff that is a talented lawyer and a talented manager that enables everybody out there to go and do their job. And so whether it's, following through on the Epstein stuff, or whether it's following through on Letitia James, or whether it's following through on what is going down there in California with Karen Bass, who has just been sued. You've got to actually see all these lawsuits through. You can't just keep flinging things around like they did with the influencers, right, at the White House. I think those guys are still not over that. You heard him mention Laura Loomer. She's not over it. She's furious because what the heck is happening here? And I think Dan's now in the position where he's like, you know what? I came here with the best of intentions. I'm not really sure this is worth it. And of course, there was apparently this meeting where Pam Bondi accused him in front of the president of planting some things in News Nation, this article that said, hey, you know what? These guys would be releasing everything if they could, but Pam Bondi is in the way. So she's mad at that. I would just say, ladies and gentlemen, this is a pretty stand-up guy. If he is going to quit the FBI over this, then that means I think we have more questions to be asking, right? And we should be asking. There's a video, remember, that is causing some concern. Dan Bongino talked about it on Fox. a short time ago, just a couple of weeks ago, he was on there and he said that this would actually help clarify things. Maybe he was told by Pam it would, but it certainly didn't, right? Because there was that missing minute. I want to show you this here. Again, Dan Bongino speaking on Fox just a couple of weeks ago, singing a slightly different tune than we're hearing now.
Those two cases obviously are of significant public interest. I'm just telling you what we see in the file. I just want to be crystal clear on this. I am not asking anyone to believe me. I'm telling you what's there and what isn't. Right. There is nothing in the file at this point on the Epstein case, and there's going to be a disclosure on this coming shortly. We are working through there is video. That is something the public does not.
There's video of him killing himself.
No, not the actual act, but the entire MCC Bay, it was only one camera. There's video that when you look at the video, and we will release, that's what's taken a while on this. We are working on cleaning it up to make sure you have an enhanced, and we're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans. You're going to see there's no one there but him. Right. There's just nobody there. So I say to people all the time, if you have a tip, let us know. But there's no DNA, there's no audio, there's no fingerprints, there's no suspects, there's no accomplices, there's no tips, there is nothing. If you have it, I'm happy to see it. There's video clear as day. He's the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it.
So this is the video, okay? Well, actually, this may not be the exact video. And I think this may be part of the problem, right? Like he wants the exact video, but there's a missing minute here. So if you look down at the bottom, and I just moved the show graphic so you can see it, like there's a missing minute. Now they're trying to say like this is just what happens, that apparently the cameras reset at the same time every night. And so between 11:59 and 12 a.m., you always have a missing minute. Well, it's all just, again, a little bit weird. I gotta tell you what I think. I'm just gonna level with you. Here's what I think. I think that, and by the way, it's not just what I think. I'll tell you what some other people think because I have very good sources on this story, including the former doctor of one Jeffrey Epstein, who told me that he had a conversation with Jeffrey Epstein the day before this all went down. He said he seemed in really good spirits. And by the way, not to be too graphic, but the conversation was about his constipation challenges. Okay, so he's like, the doctor said to me, like that's not really something you would ask about, like if you're on the verge of what he was on the verge of. So he's like, I never got the impression that this is what he was about to do. So how did that happen? He actually, according to the doctor, thought he might be getting out soon. Well, you see, that may have been the problem. He might have been threatening to sing like a canary. And if you're threatening to sing like a canary, maybe, the canary's got to go bye-bye if that important a team is involved. You see where I'm going? Because you think about how this guy got recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell, whose father was suspected to be a spy for a lot of intelligence agencies, including the Mossad. And it is believed that he was polished off by an intelligence agency. If you're Ghislaine and you have access to this amazing equipment and you've got access to all the intelligence sort of people out there that would be looking for the goods on anyone, would you then want to have somebody who could help exploit all of these people? Now, maybe she knew a little something about Epstein. Maybe she knew that he had well, how should we call this? A messed up head, okay? So I'm speaking in code, keeping it clean. But she knew he had these problems. He used to be a teacher at a private school in New York City. He was a math teacher and somehow lost his job, wound up on Wall Street as a trader. Somehow Les Wexler, who ran Limited Brands, remember Victoria's Secret, took him under his wing and introduced him to Ghislaine. And then she befriends him. And then the next thing you know, he goes from, having a rather modest living to suddenly being super wealthy. And he's hobnobbing with all of these very, very important people. Now, the doctor I spoke to said he was the most charming person on earth. Absolutely, positively charming. And so people loved him. So maybe if just hear me out. I mean, you know, why might as well talk about it. This is dominating the news cycle right now, and we might as well, like, you know, I don't have any proof of this other than to say, if I'm just trying to add up 1 + 1 to try and get to 2, the logical explanation might be that she maybe was the mastermind. She had her dad's software. She had her dad's connections. She brought in Jeffrey, who was talented as a big personality. He had his own deviances, and then would use those deviances to kind of ensnare and entrap other people. And then you get it all on tape and you send it out to the various intelligence agencies, whoever's paying for it, and suddenly you got a real business. And by the way, she's still alive, but she never threatened to sing. Like, she's doing okay. She never threatened to, you know, expose anything. Somehow Jeffrey thought if he did that, that would be his ticket out, and that was his mistake. Perhaps she knew better, right? She knew what happened to her dad. So something's going on. Don't forget Alex Acosta. He was the attorney general in Florida. When Epstein was first taken in for all of this, they gave him a slap on the wrist. He didn't have to go to real prison or anything. I mean, these are serious charges. And so why did they give him such an easy sentence? The speculation at the time, and it continues to be, is that, you know, someone from the CIA called up and said, no, you know, he's an asset, we're using him, etc. So he was an asset until he wasn't an asset, right? You're an asset until you threaten to expose the entire thing, which maybe he was just talking smack, but he wanted to get out of prison. And that wasn't going to happen? I'm just saying, we don't know, but we'd like to know, but apparently we can't. Because Pam Bondi is not allowing for the release of all this. So tell me how that makes sense. It doesn't. It doesn't make any sense at all. And what I don't like about it, frankly, is that this is going to turn into a big, you know, war within potentially the MAGA community. It doesn't have to be that, though. I think the president might have a different way to manage this. Well, you know, I'm just a big believer in transparency. You put it all out there. The problem is, and this is my fear, if you actually put it out there and you find out that the U.S. intel community was complicit or encouraging of this behavior by Jeffrey Epstein, then you've got the U.S. intel community having done some really bad stuff, right? And we know they do bad stuff. They do bad stuff all the time. I mean, heck, they train snipers and the whole bit, right? So we know they do bad stuff. But in this case, you're talking about people that are underage. So it just takes it to a whole other level. And so I don't know what Dan believes per se, what he knows per se, but I do think that it's a problem. And you know what? I hate to have to quote MSNBC, but they're not wrong on this, because this was such an important story, I think, in the MAGA community. And Donald Trump had promised to bring everything out. And now, for whatever reason, people are making a decision that it can't come out. And that's the reality of where we are right now. And people have a hard time forgiving that. So it is kind of difficult for the GOP at this moment. Here is MSNBC kind of enjoying the party. So, you know, I'll tell them it's not going to last that long, because we're a pretty united community. But nonetheless, I think there is frustration that's real.
Anything going on in the FBI's culture?
Let me deal with what they've created as well. I mean, there is instability now at the highest ranks of the FBI. And I'm not someone who used to think that Laura Loomer was something I had to follow to cover Trump as president, but she clearly has a lot of sway with Trump when it comes to key national security posts. She has posted today that Dan Bongino might quit over the Epstein debacle. And Adam, I know you've been tracking this as well. Todd Blanche has tweeted, no, you know, basically grabbing them and throwing them into whatever sinking ship he's on, saying Bongino and Kash were instrumental in helping us make the decisions we made about the Epstein files. Just talk about what's going on over the Epstein debacle at the Department of Justice and the FBI today. Adam.
Well, let's
let's just provide your listeners some context. You know, Bongino himself has been pouring gasoline on this conspiracy, the Epstein conspiracy, for years, right? For years. I mean, there's a whole host of influencers out there who've led the country to believe that there's some secret literally blowing up in their face. And, you know, prominent right-wing influencers are calling for their heads. And now now Bongino, you know, according to our own reporting, you know, has blamed, you know, Bondi for overhyping this when she, you know, invited a bunch of influencers to the White House to give them folders that literally said nothing, right? So this is literally blowing up in their faces. But the more important question is, why are they even talking about this? They shouldn't even be talking about this. I think Mike would tell you, the FBI doesn't talk about cases. The FBI talks about cases through criminal complaints and indictments. That's how they talk through the courts, right? They present the evidence and they talk through the courts. But they've been talking about these cases and leading the public to believe that there's, you know, or at least part of the public to believe that there's something there. And now there's a crisis in 2025 about the Epstein files. And in particular, Bondi, according to our reporting, is quite upset with Bongino. She's accused him of leaking to the media, right? And how ironic is that? Because that was the origins of Andy McCabe's demise, right? He spoke to the Wall Street Journal about something, and that was ultimately used in an investigation against him. And here's Bongino himself now being accused of leaking to the media by the Attorney General of the United States. And of course, it makes me wonder, are they going to polygraph Bongino?
I was wondering the same thing. I mean, Michael, what do you...
Okay. You know, like, so here's the thing. There's another kind of component to this that I want to bring into you. This is a story that came out today, I believe, on Wired, suggesting there's no evidence that the footage was deceptively manipulated. Remember the footage I was just showing you where you get the missing minute? However, there are ambiguities around how the video was processed, and that's, of course, adding more fuel to the fire. So this is a story coming out in Wired accompanying all this. And, you know, if you're Dan, I think you got questions. I really do. And if you're being told, okay, this is my job, I got to just, you know, do as they want, this, that, and the other. He's a good team player, but at some point, he's going to kind of be at the point of no return. And this is, you know, again, Julie Kelly, you guys may know her, or maybe you don't. I know she's got a popular Twitter account, popular conservative. She's saying that sources have confirmed to me the blow up between Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi is very real. This has been brewing for 4 months, and it came to a head at the White House on Wednesday. He has not been seen in the office since. Now, we knew he didn't come today, but apparently he has not been in since then. Most of the frustration at the FBI relates to her handling of Epstein disclosures and disputes, thank you, Charlotte, I'm going to get to your comment, between FBI and Bondi on how to proceed. And so now it looks as though, and I can confirm this as well, Dan Bongino is going to leave. Like, he's going to leave. It's going to come down to Pam Bondi versus Dan. Now, I know who I would choose, but that's a pretty big position, right? The Attorney General of the United States. If Donald Trump decides to get rid of the Attorney General of the United States of America so soon into his first term, he may have some concerns about whether or not that makes him look as though he's not as committed. So if you've got the second in command at FBI, that might be a little bit easier there to part with. I just think that, you know, Dan has no reason to want to get up there and lie. And if he feels strongly that there's some more there, then he's going to want to report that. He really is. And for her to say, okay, you screwed up on the tape and you're the one who's out there feeding some narrative to the media, maybe he's trying to pressure the situation, right? So that we actually do see some kind of truth or a little bit more information. I mean, you just can't treat the public like that. It feels like what they did with the Democrats, you know, trying to tell you this is one thing versus this is another. Remember when, okay, you know, you're sitting there going, okay, but a man's a man, a woman's a woman. And they're like, no, didn't you see the pregnant apple male emoji? Right? Like you're like, oh, they're gaslighting me. Or, oh, the Wuhan virus couldn't have possibly come from Wuhan, China, from that lab. No. Had to be a wet market. And so this is another one where I think people are going, hang on, this is not adding up. And Dan doesn't have any desire to get caught in a situation where he may be forced to lie, right? Where he may be forced to lie to the public. And, you know, I commend him for that. I really do. As for Kash, I'm not sure what's happening there either. I don't know if Kash is even going to stay on, because once Dan goes, I mean, I think that he's a great partner with Kash Patel, and you're already starting to see this friction, if you would, between Pam Bondi and Kash. It started even going back to that influencer thing, and the fact that they didn't have anything in those binders at the time. That was a big deal. It was a big deal. And I think you can't ignore all these questions right now. I mean, you just can't. And good for him, you know, but he doesn't need that. You think he needs that? No, he doesn't need that. I'm going to just tell you, he does not need that. You don't need to carry anyone's water. Pam Bondi has her reasons for doing this. She ought to be able to come forward with a little more, just a little more for the public. And MAGA's upset. So it's not.
Those two cases obviously are of significant public interest. I'm just telling you what we see in the file. I just want to be crystal clear on this. I am not asking anyone to believe me. I'm telling you what's there and what isn't. Right. There is nothing in the file at this point on the Epstein case, and there's going to be a disclosure on this coming shortly. We are working through there is video. That is something the public does not. There's video of him killing himself. No, not the actual act, but the entire MCC Bay, it was only one camera. There's video that when you look at the video, and we will release, that's what's taken a while on this, we are working on cleaning it up to make sure you have an enhanced, and we're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans. You're going to see there's no one there but him. Right. There's just nobody there. So I say to people.
And yet now we're getting reports that the video might have been altered in some way. So again, that coming out of Wired today, that the footage was possibly processed. Well, what does that mean? I mean, you can't tell me there's no evidence the footage was deceptively manipulated while simultaneously saying there's ambiguities around how the video was processed. And just expect everybody to not care. It's not great for Donald Trump either, right? I mean, Donald Trump is frustrated that people are so stuck on this. They're so stuck on this because this was a big thing, and everybody had a lot of questions. You even think about what happened after that whole influencer gate and how there were really no files there, and Trump was asked about it, and he said at the time, I think there's some more there, even though Kash and Bongino were saying otherwise. And just the other day, however, he got really mad. He got really mad when he was asked about this, or rather Pam was asked about this. Let me see if I can show you a little bit of video, because they were in a cabinet meeting, and he's kind of like, you have so many things that you could be focused on. I don't understand why you're focused on this. And we know why everyone's focused on this. I mean, here, look at this, for example. This was a meme that Elon Musk put out, where Elon was like saying, hey, this doesn't make any sense, because these clowns were first telling us they were going to release the Epstein list, and then they were going to tell us, okay, we just need more time. We just need more time. That was actually one of the things that she said, because they were trying to protect the victims, and I get that, whatever. But that wasn't, I don't think, really what it was about. Because now we're seeing that, it went from we just need more time to guess what? The list is on my desk. We got the list, and I got a truckload of documents that was just delivered, and we got video, and we got this, and we got that. And then to get to there's no list, like that's a pretty big leap. From the list is on my desk to there is no list. So she was asked about this, and her comment was, well, I was actually referring to the file, not the list. And so she wasn't being as precise as she should have been. Okay, fine. Like maybe you ought to try and look at things and then just be a little bit more precise when you're talking about such a big story. I get it. It's a hard job. Don't get me wrong. But there's a lot of concern right now that she's really not up to the task and that she's not up to the job. And so I think it will come down to Pam Bondi or Dan Bongino. But Dan Bongino's got something else he can go back to and something else he can do and maybe something else he ought to do right now in light of all of this, because he'd be effective as a voice calling out the shenanigans. In other words, this doesn't have to be so partisan, right? Like I think what's fair is fair. And if you're not playing fair, you need to be called out for that. I don't seem to have that soundbite right now, but it was Donald Trump saying, you guys, like, why do you just care about this? Come on, like, get another story. There's other stuff to care about. Well, I think that in light of all the frustrations, right, that people have felt about how much they've been lied to by the previous administration and by government in general for so long. And again, you know, you go back to Wuhan, you go back to the Hunter Biden laptop, you go back to Russia, and they feel betrayed, understandably so, because they cared about this, and it seemed like the Trump administration cared about it too. And then to hear something entirely different was just wild and weird. And I think that someone has to be more thoughtful about how this gets communicated. And I think you have a situation where Dan is putting pressure on Pam to be better at her job, one, but also to communicate this in a more efficient, effective way that doesn't dump on the American public. You just can't dump on us. I mean, we're not going to, and trust is so important. I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. Trust is everything. And if you don't have the trust of your base, you're going to lose a lot. And that's what we're risking right now. Okay, so it's a pretty serious situation. He leaves. He's going to continue calling them out. Bannon's calling them out. I mean, I'm calling them out. I understand how complicated it is, and I'm afraid that we don't even want to know the answer on what is the reason why we can't actually talk about this. We just don't even want it. You know, it's going to be devastating and demoralizing, and you're going to learn things about your government perhaps you never wanted to hear. That's my theory. That's my hypothesis. Before I get accused of a conspiracy, I'm just saying, right? The intelligence agencies operate in intel. And here's this guy out there willing to give all kinds of intel and get very compromising intel on people, and he did it theoretically, and theoretically was paid for it. Well, do you think they're going to tell us that? I mean, let's be realistic. Let's be realistic. They're not going to. They're just not going to. Here's Pam. Well, this would have been maybe about a couple of months ago talking about this. Again, making a lot of promises that she never delivered on.
No, the FBI, the FBI, they're reviewing, there are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child, and there are hundreds of victims, and no one victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently going through that. I haven't seen that statement, but I'll call him later and find out.
Okay. So that's how she's explaining away everything. You know, I at the time I was like, I get it, right? You have to be really careful. You're not just going to release things. But then why did you tell us you were releasing it? Why did you bring all the influencers in? And she turned around and blamed FBI, said they didn't give her everything. So then she got really hostile and said she was going to demand it. And then the next thing you know, she said she's got a truckload, direct quote, a truckload of documents. And then she's going through all the documents, and I showed you the soundbite where she said, I have the list on my desk, and we're going to release it all. And yet, what happened? Here we are. And now Dan Bongino is probably going to quit FBI unless Pam goes. I mean, I'm hearing like it's him or her. I want to get to some of your comments because I see them flying through right now in real time, because this is just unbelievable. It's certainly demoralizing, I think, for the MAGA movement, and I hate that. Someone's saying, where's Hunter? The binder thing was dumb. Peace of mind, I totally agree. Totally agree. A really dumb stunt. And that's what you're asking. Like, why are there so many stunts going on? Why do they feel the need to try and keep like a little dangling thing out, and then like they don't have anything coming through? I mean, you know, Tom pointing out that he thinks it's the CIA and Israeli intelligence. I don't disagree with you, Tom. I mean, again, the doctor I spoke to that treated Epstein told me, oh yeah, he was totally working for the intel agencies. I mean, he didn't know that. He's like, I don't know that for sure, but I'm pretty sure. And he knew everyone. I mean, literally everyone in the world. You know, Smatter Chew asking, is Blondie getting pushed out to expose her? I don't think she's actually getting pushed out at this point. Let me share with you what she's saying at this moment in time. So this is just breaking right now in real time. Apparently Pam Bondi is claiming that she has no intention of going anywhere. This is leading report on Twitter putting this out right now. That she's just, you know, she's not going anywhere, that she is talking to sources at Fox News, and she's really proud of the department's work so far, and that she is not going to step down. So again, this just coming in, Bongino saying effectively it's me or her, and Pam Bondi saying, listen, I'm not going anywhere. So Bongino is likely to step down, is likely to quit the FBI, which, you know what, I consider a win for all of us over here in the podcasting environment, because it'd be good to have him back on the trail and calling, you know, like we try and do here every single day, guys. I'm always going to be honest with you. And, you know, this is a peculiar situation where we were promised a lot and we didn't get it. We didn't get any of it. So yeah, people are mad. As we should be, you know, but this may be one where they're just making a decision that they actually can't let people know, because if the U.S. was involved in this, then it tells you just how gross and rotten our government really can be. And I think that would be so disheartening, right? So absolutely disheartening. And you know, it's a bad business, the intel business, right? Didn't Brennan say, I don't do evidence? I don't do evidence, I just do intel?
Did you find direct evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Putin in Moscow while you were there?
Mr. Rooney, I never was an FBI agent. I never was a prosecutor, so I really don't do evidence. I do intelligence throughout the course of my career.
So they got their own thing going on, you know, evidence, intelligence. What's? It seems though in this case, if you're out there gathering intel, and you're the CIA, and you're getting it from Jeffrey Epstein, you're really getting compromise, and that would be evidence, would it not? Okay, Brennan? Yeah. Anyway, listen, more power to Dan. I like him a lot. I respect him a lot. And I think he's going to come out of this just fine. As for Pam, I don't know. Markets are killing it, still killing it. I mean, I love it every day. You know, this is funny. I'll share this with you. My son said to me, Mom, did you see the market? And I'm like, yeah, I did. He's like, I think I should take some of my gains. He has like a very small little account that I helped him set up. And I'm like, no, you don't take the gains. You're 12, okay? You're in it for the long run, buddy, okay? The long run. And sure enough, Bitcoin went up again today, hitting nearly 120 a coin. So it's kind of this melt up movement that we're seeing with Bitcoin, which is sort of fascinating. And it's going to get me to one Paul Krugman, who got this totally, utterly, absolutely wrong. I mean, you want to talk a hack. Paul Krugman trying to say it's going straight to $700. He got it all wrong, but he always gets everything wrong. Over and over and over again. He said the Trump economy was going to be a disaster back in 2016. Yeah, it took off. We actually saw a growing economy, less inflation. We had terrific job growth. I mean, all up until March 2020, right? Paul Krugman. Anyway, one thing I want to note, one of our great sponsors here on the show, we welcome them. They're new, Gemini. You know, if you're interested in crypto, I think this is a great way to do it. I was actually just today, I was planning a business trip for something, and I thought to myself, well, do I use my points? Because, well, no, I'm not going to use my points because it's a business trip, etc. And then I'm like, well, I take a lot of business trips and I never use my points. So I'm sitting on a lot of points. And I'm like, when am I going to use these? Because every year they're losing value, every single solitary year. Like, I mean, if I hang on to these things for 5 years, they're not going to be worth what they are today. So then, you know, this is why I'm so proud to introduce this card to you guys, because this is a whole different way of thinking about it. This is what I need to put all my business expense on. It's Gemini.com/Trish. It's the orange card, you know, orange for Bitcoin. You get $200 worth of free Bitcoin. They actually have a bunch of different cryptos, so you can choose which crypto you want. I happen to like Bitcoin. And you know what? You get rewards, like a certain percentage of what you're spending in Bitcoin. So then that Bitcoin is kind of parked there. It sits there. I mean, you could transfer it to your bank account at any time, but why would you? Because then it would be in dollars and therefore would not accumulate more value. I mean, Bitcoin's gone, what, from 55,000 when I was telling you, you have to buy it. I know some of you were like, no, I'm not doing that. But I'm telling you again, like, you have to look at this, but this is a neat way of not having to take a risk, because you just get the percentage back in whatever you spend. And then it sits there until you want it. And so no harm, no foul. And for me, you know, my points, which are losing value every single day because of inflation. I mean, it used to be, you know, some hotels would charge 100,000 points and now they want 200,000 points. I'm like, are you kidding me? I remember back in the day it was 30,000 points. You get where I'm going. So it's nice to actually have rewards in something that accumulates value, and you get the $200. After, I think you have to have the card for like 90 days and you have to spend a certain amount of money. We have all the details and the link, by the way, in the show notes. So go check that out today. But I mentioned that all because, of course, we did tell you at 76 Research, buy. Remember right before the election? I hope you did. I hope you're getting this. You know, my son, when he said to me, Mom, I think that maybe we should take some money off the table. He's got this little C. And I said, you know, you need to read my colleague's note on what I would tell my sons. We're going to publish this weekend. He's got a great piece out about the 9 investing lessons he wants his sons to know. I'm going to give one of them away, which is strap yourself to the mast and hold on for dear life, right? Because if you're a long investor, and we're not talking about Don, who I know is an options trader, and he's in and out, one of our viewers here. But if you're a long investor, you actually want to have this exposure over the long run. And so I'm like, kid, you're 12, okay? You're in it for the long run. Enjoy the ride. You can get 76 Research. Just use code word $, and you're going to get access to some of the best, most authentic research out there. But it's all coming up, you see, as we look at this incredible rise in Bitcoin, which is just tremendous. And the reason I wanted to bring this up today was because I found this old story and I thought it was really fitting to tell you about it right now. Because do you like Paul Krugman? Do you know who Paul Krugman is? Paul Krugman is an economist at Princeton University, and he is also the conscience of a liberal columnist at the New York Times. And back in 2013, like, he gets everything wrong. So the trade, just remember this, the trade is, if Paul Krugman tells you to do something, do the opposite, okay? So he thought the markets were going to go to hell when Donald Trump was elected in 2016. He thinks the same thing now. So again, that's why you do the opposite. It's just a really good trade. Anybody who saw this would have been well advised. He said, you know what, it'll never be above $700. It's a disaster, this, that, and the other. And again, it's at like 120. Okay, like near 120. We'll see. It could be a melt up. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see the thing go to 200. Really, don't don't hold me to that, because this is an incredibly volatile product, which is why I like it via the Gemini card. So take a look at that when you can. I'll try and, it is in the show notes. Maybe I'll put it in the chats as well. But speaking of markets, speaking of everything that, has happened, Paul Krugman getting totally exposed as the hack that he is over that Bitcoin call. A lot of other things are happening today. We're looking at maybe some expectation for more depreciation in the US dollar. You look at oil prices, for example, going up and away today, up 3.6% or so. And I think some of that is tied to these calls for the Fed chief to resign. So Powell is not exactly on the most favored persons list for one Donald Trump. Jerome Powell is coming under a lot of heat, and you now have the guy who is William Pulte. He's over at FHA. He's saying, you know what? And let me zoom in kind of close, because this is hard to see. This is actually very hard to see. But okay, here we go. I'm encouraged by reports that Jerome Powell is considering resigning. I think this will be the right decision for America, and the economy will boom, because they all want lower rates. And now, if you're in the real estate sector, you probably do want lower rates, right? Like William Pulte would like to see lower rates, because mortgage rates are very high, which make it harder, shall we say, for people to go and get a loan to buy a mortgage. So they're blaming Jerome Powell for that. Donald Trump has come out over and over and over again saying, Powell's going to go, Powell's going to go. And that may also be helping to fuel some of this upside in, for example, Bitcoin, because people are seeking, right, like some kind of hard currency. And this isn't, it's hard money, I should say, hard money. And that's one of the reasons you're seeing that. I just want to look at a few other things going. Actually, the market took a turn. What do you know, late in the session. So that's for whatever it's worth, down 0.2%, whatever that. I'm not too concerned about that. But you do have crude oil up 3.27%. You have gold up 1.34%, silver up 5%. So these were some pretty big moves. As we look at oil right now, up. Actually, this is it's actually more than that, more than 3.15%. It's up 3.27%. We're reminded that oil is a pretty important and precious commodity, and yes, it has an effect on inflation. I think that this administration is very committed to making sure that we drill and that we get the most oil we can right here at home. And it's important we do, I think, from a national security standpoint. I think also from an economic security standpoint. And then the other thing that's going on, which is just the reality, and nobody ever wants to talk about this on the left, is that fossil fuels, and this is why the shale industry is so important, fossil fuels are also really, really important to our success. I mean, they always claim they're the victims, right? Or the villains, what am I saying? The villains, I should say. Fossil fuels are the villains. That's what you hear over and over again from legacy media, from the establishment politicians, and yet, in reality, if you didn't have fossil fuels, guess what? The air conditioning on those hot summer days, we wouldn't have that. I mean, we'd be like a third world country. Think about all the systems, the heating systems, right, that protect us from the extreme cold as well. They enable us to save lives. So, they're hardly the villain. They're actually kind of a hero in terms of the prevention of death, the extension of life. And so they get this really, really bad rep, and I just think it's kind of ridiculous. Anyway, we did have the CEO of the Prairie operating company, it's a shale company, on the other day, and he's got a great website out, oilfacts.com. It was really interesting to talk to him because he predicted this move in oil. What do you know? And sure enough, we're seeing the oil traded up today, crude oil up 3.27%. Anyway, we're thrilled to partner with them in terms of helping people understand more about the shale industry, because it's a critical industry, it's an important industry, and we love it. Another story to tell you about right now, CNN. CNN is facing layoffs. CNN is facing salary cuts for some of its top talent. Gee, I wonder who that could be. I have a clue. So this story just coming out, getting reported actually in the Washington Free Beacon, that CNN's overpaid talent would be bracing for deep cuts amid this corporate shakeup. You see, it is a corporate shakeup. They're having a restructuring. The State Department's not the only one having the restructuring. CNN's got a restructuring going on of their own. Warner Brothers, Discovery, this is the parent company of CNN. They have, made a decision that this whole TV thing, it's not really working, right? So they've got to come up with something else. They've got to come up with some kind of product that's going to work in the future, as opposed to the traditional cable model where you get paid a certain amount per subscriber, and that's where your revenue stream is based off of. But, you can't actually make money on the commercials by putting it live on something like YouTube, which is good for independent creators like yours truly, right? Because we're able to do things that they just aren't. I mean, many things that they just aren't, let's be honest. And so they're seeing these declines in their television assets. And so they decided they're going to start a new company, and they're going to kind of separate the old cable stuff and kind of create this new cable thing, and they're calling it Global Networks. And the idea here is that you're going to be able to grow a media company for the future while sort of weaning off that old cable style CNN thing. Well, it's good. It's good, right? For shareholders, that's a good thing. But if you are a high-priced anchor at CNN, I'm thinking Jake Tapper. I'm thinking Anderson Cooper. Wolf Blitzer? I don't know. Maybe it's time for you to actually take a pay cut, because the company can't earn that much anymore and doesn't have a growth trajectory. So this came out recently. There's a guy who's a media reporter at a place called Puck, and he's predicting it's going to get a whole lot worse for CNN employees, many of whom really haven't really understood how significant these layoffs are going to be. But it's going to be really significant. Budgets are going to be slashed. The offices will be SHI ittier, okay, according to them. And familiar perks will disappear. And there's also another media reporter, a guy who's formerly from CNN, who's got a newsletter now, and he said that as of next month, this is how you know it's really bad at CNN, employees are going to have to start submitting receipts when they submit their expense reports. Oh my gosh, you actually have to you need a receipt? I've never heard of somebody not turning in a receipt. Let me just tell you, I've worked at a bunch of networks. I didn't work at CNN, but you had to turn in your receipts. You can't just take a source to dinner and not have a receipt. I've never even heard of that. So, they're getting away with all kinds of stuff at CNN. Well, those days are ending. They're going to have to turn in their receipts, and the morale is really grim, according to one CNN employee who was talking to Fox. Yeah, they're kind of unhappy. But you know what? Their whole industry is getting shaken up in real time, and it is what it is, right? We're seeing the same thing over on The View. They're kind of unhappy over on The View. They're kind of unhappy over on CNN. And I suspect, as we look at some of these big salaries getting slashed, it's been reported that Anderson Cooper makes $15 million. I don't know if that's true or not, but if so, it's $15 million too much, right? Tell him to go out on his own. Could he ever earn that? Could he actually host a show, a podcast, and have enough personality to carry it through? I don't think so. I mean, it's like watching paint dry. Anyway, Jake Tapper, he's onto something. He's clued in. And so I think part of this sort of change that you've seen in Jake Tapper is all about his marketability, because maybe he's hoping he might be able to get a job at Fox one day. Of course, he wasn't thinking about this before the election. No. Back when he was carrying Biden's water the entire time and going on and on after Lara Trump because she dared to say maybe Biden was slowing down. I mean, when you dare to say the obvious, right? Here he is.
Every time he comes on stage or they turn to him, I'm like, Joe, can you get it out? Let's get the words out, Joe. You kind of feel bad for him.
How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
First and foremost, I had no idea that Joe Biden ever suffered from a stutter. I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable
You have
to watch somebody on stage search for
that's so amazing.
questions
It's so amazing to me
and,
that
and try and figure out an answer.
a cognitive decline.
Well, when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you
stuttering,
were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think that somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses diagnosing politicians from afar. Plenty of people have diagnosed your father from afar, and I'm sure it offends you. Your father-in-law from afar. I'm sure it offends you. You don't have any standing to say.
I'm not diagnosing him. What I'm saying, Jake,
you just talked
is
about
that
a cognitive
we can
decline.
See that Joe Biden
I have one last
struggling
question for you, Laura. You can't
times on stage, and it's very concerning to a lot of people that this could be the leader of the free world.
Okay.
That is all I'm saying. I genuinely feel
Laura
sorry
Trump.
for Joe Biden.
I appreciate it. I'm sure.
Yeah, so that was Jake back in the day, before he decided to go all in. We got to get rid of Biden. We got to get Kamala Harris in there. And he just knew it, right? Because maybe his friend George Clooney told him. Or maybe because, well, he was trying to save the party. And then when he realized, oh gosh, darn it, all that USAID money that CNN maybe was getting, I don't know. It's a global network, right? Maybe they were getting some of the USAID money, kind of like Reuters, kind of like the New York Times, kind of like Politico. Whatever went down, CNN is now up a creek without a paddle. It doesn't have the financing it used to have. So suddenly Jake's out with a spiffy new book where he's doing the rounds on conservative media. Again, now he's the hero? Come on. This is all about him, I suspect, trying to get a job at Fox.
I went on a left-leaning podcast that shall remain nameless, and we were talking about my kids, because I think they were both people without kids. And they asked me about my son, and I said he was,
Do you hear that little dig? Because again, he's trying to appeal to conservatives, so he's dinging the liberals who don't have the kids. Kind of irrelevant to his story, but nonetheless, here we go.
A football player, and he wants to be a policeman. And their joke was about my 15-year-old son, oh, how does he feel about minorities? Like the idea that he wants to be a policeman, therefore he's racist, my son. And that was the big laugh, and then I got dragged in the comments and all that stuff. And I thought to myself, this is why you fuckers are losing elections.
Oops. 100%. Can't say that on CNN. But Jake is suddenly coming to some realization that maybe his party is not the nicest party in the world. Maybe they kind of carry a grudge. Maybe the Democrats took things too far with their whole cancel culture. Or maybe Jake is just a completely financial animal that one decided to come out with a book when he was actually a big part of the problem, exposing the media that he led and actually, participated in and was part of the problem in, and now is trying to get a job at some place that might actually have a dime to pay him. Fox, don't do it. Okay? Don't do it. Don't do it. Let him go do a podcast. See how that goes. You're going to have to decide who you are, Jake. You're either a lib or you're conservative, but this whole, trying to have it both ways, I don't think it's going to fly. Just saying. Speaking of podcasts that are not really flying, have you guys had the chance to watch Michelle Obama? Hopefully, probably not. Well, Michelle's out with a new episode. She's doing a new episode once a week because, she's really working hard. Once a week. And she sits there and she laments how tough life is. As a woman, as a black woman, we women, we have so many differences. I mean, hey, apparently not that many according to all you libs because you want everybody to be in the same swimming lane. Anyway, she sat down with the former Seinfeld actress, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, a very big lib herself, and they started lamenting how tough women have it. It's all coming, of course, as the divorce rumors heat up. We're going to get to that because Jennifer Aniston is out with some new comments on her love life. She's been speculated to be taken up with Barry. I know you guys don't really believe that. I'm not sure if I believe it either, for a whole variety of reasons. But nonetheless, here is Michelle lamenting the life of an American woman with Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yeah, women, we have so many landmines and barriers and don'ts and limitations. It's, I mean, Craig, you're the guy at the table, but I think it's important for all guys listening, especially men raising daughters, to realize that difference, and that thing that inadvertently, as you are loving and raising these beautiful girls, there are so many rules that make us small.
Baked in without our knowing it,
Yeah.
And I wish I could, I remember people saying, oh, well, she's a female doctor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As opposed to just, she's a doctor.
So it's sort of funny how they now want us to think about the differences between women and men, while simultaneously not recognizing the differences. Women have it so hard, okay, and yet you don't think you guys are contributing to that at all? When you have Riley Gaines having to go up against somebody who was born a biological man? I'm just saying, you don't think that you're contributing to more challenges that women have? Anyway, Michelle's got her share of challenges, believe me. A lot of challenges. And one of them might just be her marriage right about now. So Michelle Obama commented on this podcast earlier that she had to skip the Trump inauguration because she just didn't feel like going. She never really explained why she did not go to Jimmy Carter's funeral, though. I never got that one because, he was the Democrats' messiah. I mean, they loved Jimmy Carter. It was Jimmy Carter who said that Donald Trump didn't win the election because the election was stolen by the Russians. Remember that? With John McEacham I mean, that was one for the history books. So you'd think that she'd have some level of respect for Jimmy Carter and would have gone to his funeral. I get that she doesn't like Trump, and she just said, I'm just going to skip it. And then as soon as I skipped it, everybody said my marriage was falling apart. All right, maybe you're just kind of not a nice person and you just figure I'm going to skip it because I don't like Trump. I'm still going back to the other one, Jimmy Carter. Why did you skip that one? Allegedly, she was on vacation at the time, so she couldn't go. I mean, at the time, I actually thought maybe she's ill. Maybe she's actually really, really ill. And it turned out she's not. So again, I'm why would she skip this? I don't have any other reason other than, two things. One, the marriage is falling apart and she can't stand to be around Barry at any time of the day or night. Or two, she is just an incredibly selfish person that doesn't feel any sense of duty to her country that she was first lady of for 8 years. She seems to almost kind of resent that she had to do anything as first lady. She said on her podcast, sometimes you just don't feel like doing stuff, so you just don't do it. Hey, maybe I don't feel like getting out of bed and taking the kids to school in the morning, but guess what? I do it. All right? Sometimes you just do things because it's your job. You don't feel like taking the garbage out at night, but guess what? You do it. Michelle, we all have responsibilities in life. You can't just say, I'm going to get on my little woman thing and not actually do what I should do. And guess what? You should have been at Trump's inauguration, sure. But I get it. You hate him. You should have been at Jimmy's funeral. I mean, that was bonkers. So I did think that they might have a little something going on. And then it came out that Jennifer Aniston was allegedly having a thing with Barack Obama. I mean, there are many reasons not to believe that, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe he's classing himself up somehow. Anyway, but whatever you think of Jennifer Aniston, I actually think that's kind of a reach for him. I mean, I still remember her back in the Friends days. Here she is going on her friend Jimmy Kimmel's show trying to say, no, I didn't have it. This was crazy. This is totally untrue.
The magazine that came out a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, can you hear it?
Said the truth about Jen and Barack.
That's kind of, that was
Of all the calls you get from your publicist where you're just like, oh no, what's it going to be? Or the email saying, some cheesy tabloid is going to make up a story, and then it's that.
Yeah. Does your
I was not
publicist
mad
ever
at
go
it.
like, is there any truth to this? Or is it...
No, that is absolutely untrue.
Well, I know it's not true.
Yeah.
I just don't know if everybody knows.
Well, it is untrue.
Some people, it is untrue. So the truth about Jen and Barack is that there is no truth.
There is
it
no
is
truth.
Untrue. You know Barack Obama.
I've met him once.
Met him once.
I know Michelle more than him.
What is there a truth about you and Michelle that we should know?
That is not true.
So, knowing that,
Well, whatever it may be, I do think Michelle and Barack are having, I don't know, she's talked about this for years. I mean, she's very open about it, about, how she doesn't really like her husband at times. I mean, it's just, I'll just tell you, Barack, I think you made a mistake. I think you did. Like, you could have done better. It's like when you look at Prince Harry, right? Who made the mistake with Meghan Markle. And you're like, gosh, I get it. You can't pick your family, but you can pick your spouse. And Barack, I'm not sure you picked the best spouse, and maybe it's all coming back to haunt you right now. Anyway, Jennifer Aniston really wants you to know there's no way she's got anything going on with Barack Obama, because she's actually got a whole new hottie that she's being photographed with on vacation. In fact, the lead in the story there in the Daily Mail on the entertainment section is, quote, Jennifer Aniston hard launches hot new lover as intimate snaps on vacation show up with friends emerge. So why does that happen? I'm going to tell you, somebody called Daily Mail and said, take some pictures of Jennifer and her new hot thing on vacation. This stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum. Okay, like somebody wanted this out there. Why did they want it out there? Maybe to deflect away from those other rumors. Just saying. Anyway, it's good to have you all here as we head into the weekend. I am going to be back on the show again live tomorrow. Reminder, go check out Gemini.com/Trish for 200 in free Bitcoin. Don't forget to go and use my code $, for my company, 76 Research. This is important. And like I said, we got a great new piece coming out. Rob wrote something really special about the investing advice, the 9 rules that he's giving to his son. So again, sign up. It's just $1 a month, $1. Okay, guys, you can swing it. $1 a month. Think of how much money you would have made if you'd bought Bitcoin when we told you. Or how about, we had a really good one. I don't know if I can give it away. I'm going to. STRK. Okay, that was a really good one. My mom actually is thrilled that she subscribes because she got that one. But it's up like, I don't know, maybe 50% or so since we recommended it just a short time ago. I do encourage you, go check that out. Go to 76research.com, use code word $. I'm seeing you guys are getting on somebody in this chat. You don't like somebody. Oh, no, you don't like Jake. I see it. Ian, you don't like Jake. I hear it. Peace of my mind. Quite a show today. I know. It's a long one. We're wrapping it up. Let me know what you think about the Epstein stuff. It's challenging, right? Because we love what this president is doing, and I think he's just terrific for the country. And I understand and empathize with the challenges that Pam has. But I also get that Dan Bongino is true blue, and he's not going to carry anyone's water, and whatever he thinks, if you're in the way of it and you're not really that great at your job, and I'm not saying that Pam's not great, I just think she's probably understaffed, and she's out there doing TV while she's trying to run these cases, while she's trying to run a team of people, and it's like, pick your poison, right? Maybe the answer is you have some kind of chief of staff who's a standout attorney behind the scenes, who's a heck of a manager, and then you put all those pieces in place and let Pam oversee it. In television, we'd have an executive producer. And so the talent would be kind of the talent, right? And they get out there and they do their thing. And, in the case of Anderson Cooper, he's paid to literally read a teleprompter. But if you've got a good talent, the good talent sets the tone for everything. In the case of this, I'm independent. So I'm EP, I'm talent, I'm graphics. I'm audio. I'm all of it. I do have two terrific people that help me, but the truth is, you know what? You're looking at it, right? So it's a different situation over here. But I would say for the health of the country right now, we need somebody really, really qualified. And maybe that still is Pam, and she's great at communicating things, sort of. I mean, this Epstein thing, I'll tell you, is a debacle, though. But maybe she's overstuffed. I'm going to try and give her the benefit of the doubt, if you would, because I would like to, I just want this administration to succeed. And I know they can. And I'm pretty darn sure they will. David, thank you so much for the kind. I love all you guys too. We're coming up on 1 million. So if you have not subscribed, make sure that you subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. Tell your friends to subscribe. Get the word out. I'm going to be back here tomorrow because this Epstein story, how do we say, has legs. And I don't think it's over yet. I'm going to continue doing my reporting. But again, my sources are very confident that it's him or her, and Bongino has had it. So think about that. Let me know what you think. Join me here again live tomorrow. See you then.